idea. All right, I'm going to start us off. This is our panel. Next to me is Father John Grace. He was ordained for the Diocese of Richmond in 1979. He served in parish ministry for 13 years, and right now he's the pastor at Immaculate Conception Parish in Hampton, which is the first parish to make the transition to solar power in the diocese. He served in parishes for 11 years in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Lynchburg before he moved into university ministry, where he served as director of campus ministry at both JMU and Virginia Tech. And he served on the board of directors of the Catholic Volunteer Network. And next to him is Chad Wilkins, who's the owner of Convert Solar. Convert Solar is a design and build solar contractor that installs projects for residential and commercial across the state of Virginia. Chad started Convert Solar in 2012. He tells me when no solar company would hire him. So he started his own business. The company has grown to over 20 employees installing solar on 40 houses a month, along with public and private schools, churches, and businesses. And Chad and Convert Solar's goal is to convince people that a building that does not produce its own energy is lame. Tish Tablin at the end is program director for Generation 180, which is a nonprofit committed to inspiring, empowering, and equipping individuals to take action on clean energy in their homes and communities. She leads a national solar schools campaign to help schools receive the educational and financial benefits of clean energy. For 2 decades, she has been working within nonprofit, public, and private sectors to inspire sustainable solutions to complex environmental challenges, including consulting localities on solar policies. Tish has a master's in environmental science and policy from Johns Hopkins and a BA in sociology from the University of Virginia. She holds a LEED Green Associate credential for green building and is a member of Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Corps. And with her, we have Aditi Iyengar, who's a senior at Oakland High School in Vienna. She's a member of Solar on Schools for Fairfax County Public Schools, a student-led coalition that aims to put solar panels on Fairfax County schools by positively marketing solar energy to the school board and larger community. That's our panel today. And first up, we're going to have Father John, who's going to tell the story of putting solar on their church.
Thank you very much. I need to preface this by saying I am not an expert in anything. As a church pastor, you're the ultimate generalist. And most of your life, basically, is just helping people get through life. Proclaiming the gospel, you do a lot of maintenance work. I'm not a special person that goes to conferences. I'm not an expert that brings much to any conversation. But one of the things about our story in Immaculate Conception was the idea of what our values are. There's a lot of motivators for people doing what they do. I mean, for business, your job is to make money, I guess. But in my world, as a church pastor, your job basically is to crystallize, to enflesh core values that you stand for. We talk about in Christianity, incarnation. You enflesh the core values of what you believe in terms of God. And this is pretty strong for me in terms of a pastor. All we do must be about a reflection of what it is we believe in. And the starting point about what we believe in is that life itself begins as a gift, right? None of you in this room gave yourself life. It was given to you. So the first moment you took a breath, it was a gift. The world in which you live in is a gift. None of you created the Sierra Nevada or the James River. Everything we have in life begins with gift. The moral, the ethical value behind understanding life as gift and the planet as gift is take care of the gift. Absolutely take it. That is a moral imperative. And as a Catholic, John Paul II in 1990, January 1990, said, caring for God's creation is a moral issue. It's not just political or economic, it's a moral issue. Therefore, when I was looking at energy efficiency, when I got there, 3 weeks after I'm the new pastor last year, I'm looking around, how can I be a good steward of the folks' money and the energy that we use? Now, I'm a generalist that's clueless about everything, but have surface knowledge about anything and everything, which means I'm dangerous in terms of my opinions. So I needed help. And I needed an expert to help me look at issues of the environment, for example, energy efficiency, and also help me look at resources to be able to act on them. So there's a group called Catholic Energies that comes from the Catholic Climate Covenant, the values piece, and they have an office called Catholic Energies. They don't make money off me, but what they do is they help me as a pastor ask the right questions and pursue and vet the kinds of people around me that I need. They vetted Chad and Convert Solar, because I wouldn't know what kind of questions to ask. Okay, panels up there, wires, isn't that good? Like all nonprofits. Well, I guess that's wonderful. And also, I didn't want to be one of the cool kids. I just wanted to be really responsible for the gifts and that we had. So as we started with energy efficiency, I asked the question, can we go solar in Hampton? Well, lo and behold, the answer was yes, because they did the whole year long of energy uses and our kilowatt hours, et cetera, did the research, and we're sitting in a tax exempt economic opportunity zone in 23666. You love that zip code for a church? And so any new business coming in on our church would have a huge tax break as well. So suddenly I was getting green lights. And this is what happened. I did not pursue solar. I just kept on asking more questions about how can we be responsible stewards of God's creation. Solar came into the picture. Once that became part of the picture, I started engaging our parishioners, our finance, and pastoral council, and I started his ministry. Chad comes over, he'll tell you all about what he set up in terms of the 440 panels here. But the process was, in our church, I have NASA scientists and engineers. Some people know what they're talking about. And the parishioners started buying into this. We had some great conversations. Catholic Energies came down with their experts, their money people, the investors folks. Chad came over, this is how all these panels work. They were from Italy, I didn't know that, I appreciated that. And so we had wonderful conversations, ongoing conversations in the church itself. I did not go, because the Catholic system has layers, I did not go to the bishop until our grassroots were taken care of. Parishioners then gave me a standing applause at all our church services, go solar. Then and only then I took it up to the next level. Took it to the bishop, surprised the bishop, because Catholic churches are not exactly known for innovation about these things, and rightfully so. That's not what the mission is, I guess. But that said, what happened was Catholic Energies was able to also negotiate with investors. Long story short, they found the investors, they gave me the expertise that I, the local pastor, did not have. And as a result, we have an investor that bought the panels and will maintain the panels for the next 20 years. My electric bill will probably be, I think, we're still, we're talking about Dominion, we got a double bill. But anyway, we're only 3 months old. So we will essentially be about 13, 14% lower cost. We are 100% solar now. And so the value is in our behavior. We are not a for-profit. Everybody asks me, how much money are you going to save? The nice thing about the app I got is I can count the number of tons of CO2 we are not producing. That's part of our economics as well. The result has been the parishioners, not one single, and I mean this, not one single voice opposed this in the parish. We had a good grassroots thing. Everybody was involved in it. Everybody feels an ownership in the project. And as a result, retired people were saying, I've never been so proud of the place, by doing this. And then young adults, I had no idea the Catholic Church cared about the environment. It's a moral principle for us, by the way, the unknown secret that no one seems to know. And so the response has been unbelievable. However, we also went through a very tedious process. for the right reason. And again, different churches are gonna be different. We have a diocese. We went through every hoop you could possibly go. Now, every other church in the Diocese of Richmond knows how to do it.
Yeah.
And so St. Teresa's in Chesapeake is going solar, Church of the Nativity in Burke, St. Bernadette's in Springfield. By the way, 3 of those folks are my classmates from college. See the color hair I have? Remember back in the 70s, we're going to change the world. Remember that? And remember the notion of the common good. And these are all part of it. We are acting on our values. And this is what made it so successful. Now, I'm being invited to places like this, but I could not have done this without a partnership with somebody who found investors and somebody like Chad who knew how to actually do this. He made a comment to me when I'm climbing up on the roof, I'm wandering when they're installing it. He said, you're like a little kid before Christmas. Yeah, I was. I certainly was. By the way, start to finish, it took us 10 months, and I was pastor of my parish for only 11 months, which tells you if you have a good process grassroots, you could be brand new and it works. So I definitely endorse this and how we work.
Thank you, Father John. I really enjoy following up with what he has to say, because as the owner of a solar company and our mission to build renewable energy across the state, we talk all the time in dollars and cents, price per kilowatt hour, what's my ROI? And then I get to work with Father John and his parish, and we talk about the externalities. We talk about how much carbon dioxide are we offsetting? How are we achieving our common goals as a church and a religious organization, a body of faith? And so then I get to just give it a fist pump and say, yes, somebody's speaking the same language. We all have to pay the bills, we all have to make money, but it doesn't have to be what defines our overall goal of life. And so Father John spells it out of what we're really trying to do here. So you guys can read about Convert Solar. Not a big deal. There's lots of solar companies across the state that can do what we do. But we have done some churches across the state. We've done some in the area. Our first was Unity Renaissance Church in Chesapeake, Virginia. They were where we cut our teeth learning how this all worked. So Father John also points out, it's complicated. I don't want to say it's simple, it's easy, just call us, we'll take care of it. There are a lot of stakeholders involved in taking a church or another nonprofit solar. There are layers of responsibility and layers of bureaucracy, we'll put it that way. And everybody sort of is coming at this from a different angle. So some people really are really concerned about the ROI. Some people are concerned about the moral obligation. Some folks are concerned about the environment as the number one issue and what they were doing for that. We then moved on from there. We did Williamsburg Universalist Unitarian Church here in Williamsburg, Virginia. We were really excited about that church. That one has been up and running this year. They've made almost 50 megawatt hours, which was their goal to have had made by, I believe, February 1st. They are a net energy producer. They are net zero. They have exported about 7 megawatt hours more to the grid than they've used so far. So that was an interesting situation because in that congregation, they wanted to do it. They had already worked out all the kinks on their side. They called up and they said, we have the money. How much is it going to cost us to do solar? Gave them a cash price and did the job. That was one case where it was clean and easy. That doesn't always happen because we've got a little issue here, and it's called somebody else's money. So when a nonprofit wants to go solar, the issue is that they cannot take the investment tax credit or depreciation schedule. So they could just say, oh, we'll just pay for it, we don't care what the cost is. Dream scenario for a contracting company that's building solar for you, but that never happens. So they internally figured out some ways that they were going to be able to take their tax credits and everything else. They had done all the work themselves, very great group of individuals there. So that was one of the one-off cases, but typically it has to go like Immaculate Conception, where a third-party investor is involved in the situation. Their money is eligible for the tax credits. They're going to sell power back to the church. This is in a limited pilot program from Dominion, so if I can stress one thing, we need this PPA cap pilot program raised. So it's going to be a real, I don't know if it'll be a fight. Some people here are sure that we're going to get the net metering and hopefully PPA raised, but I'm looking at it sort of a little wary that, okay, here next year sometime, our utility is not going to allow us to do this anymore, which stinks. I don't think that's fair, but we'll let the public fight this out. Hopefully there's some advocates here that'll be fighting for this. St. Andrew Presbyterian in Suffolk was done at the beginning of this year as well. And this is another case. This is one where they came to me and they said, Chad, we want to do it. We've got support from the overall church. We've signed off on it, but we don't have any money. We don't know who to talk to. We don't know how to make this happen. What do we do? And in this instance, Convert Solar looked at it and we said, okay, really like you guys. We're doing solar on your individual houses. We're doing solar in the community for other folks in the area. This is a community thing. This is something that we truly care about. Solar on your house, solar on your kid's school, solar on your house of worship. Now we're all committed all the way around. No one can ignore this. And I said, Convert Solar has a little tiny bit of money. We'll pay for it and we'll keep it. So Convert Solar is the PPA provider on this project. So as I said, it gets complicated. The number of churches that come to us and say, we want to do this is, there's dozens of them at this point. The number one question is always, who's going to pay for it? So sometimes Convert Solar will look at it and say, okay, we want this one. This one's going to produce well. We're already invested in this community. There's business reasons to do it, and then there's other internal investment reasons to do it. Otherwise, then we all start looking for money to pay for the solar. Father John's got the great case, and I like to tout this about the Catholic Church. It's not the individual parish that has to do this alone now. They have risen to the diocese level. So the Richmond Diocese covers the majority of Virginia. Once they have signed on, there is now a larger counterparty. And that's a word I'd like everybody, when we're talking about the nonprofit and third party and solar, to remember is counterparty. So the investors or whoever's putting up the money to own the solar wants to know they're going to be paid back eventually. To me, and I think to Ruth, it seems like a no-brainer. If you've been paying your power bill, you can easily pay a little less for the same amount of energy to the PPA provider. But larger investors always are looking and vetting out the counterparty. So that's one of the things that we run into a lot for individual non-denominational churches that want a big system. Convert Solar can't pay for it. They're not part of a larger institution, and so we're out looking for money. The investors are always going, they don't have enough of a track record. We don't have enough. They're not strong enough of a counterparty. That's an issue we run into a lot. So that's an issue that we would like to solve. We'd like to see new revenue streams coming in. We'd like to see people doing a better case of assessing the risk of these investments, because I think that a lot of people are just breezing over them. They're not paying enough attention to them yet. Yep, there we go. The first church in the Diocese of Richmond to go solar. I guess we don't have the video playing there. I don't know if it's link or not. We had a little time lapse of solar panels going down. From a solar installer's point of view, it's all these other things to get to being able to install the solar. Installing the solar panels is kind of an easy, fun part. It goes quickly. It usually goes smoothly as long as you got a good engineering team that's got everything signed off for everybody. Father John was coming up there almost every day and walking around with a big smile on his face, like a kid right before Christmas looking around the presents under the tree. This is some of the stuff we have coming up. Father John touched on it, but there's a bunch of projects coming up. And the Catholic Church, again, I'm gonna brag about it. They've done a good job of institutionalizing this on their side, finding the money, finding the system, setting up the protocols for doing projects. All of these are slated on the books. We're in engineering right now for St. Anthony of Padua, and let's see, Church of the Nativity and St. Bernadette. All of these, we're doing all the engineering so that we can hopefully start January, February on these projects. There it goes. It blends over from, there we go. So you can see what we're going to be building on these. See if I can get that to do it again. I like that. All right, so thank you for letting me rant for a couple minutes. I really appreciate the time today.
Hi everyone, I'm Aditi Iyengar. I'm a senior in high school in Northern Virginia, and I'm a member of Solar on the Schools XCPS, which is a student-led coalition that aims to put solar on our schools. So first off, we did it, which is really exciting. In January of 2019, Fairfax County added 3 schools to their capital improvement plan commitment as a pilot program, with more being evaluated. But I want to backtrack and show you how we got there. So, Solar on the Schools was founded by 3 high school students in 2016, and we were advised by a member of our local Sierra Club. And they started the advocacy work that we continue today. So we started a petition that we presented to the school board, which eventually got 1,600 signatures, and we gave a lot of speeches at the citizen participation and school board meetings, and also sending videos to them. And in these speeches, we emphasized the environmental, educational, economic, and moral reasoning to go solar, as well as PPAs and the financial feasibility that they bring to school systems. So the way that our coalition is organized is we have 8 to 10 members from high schools across the county, and we have monthly in-person meetings where we discuss our agenda items for the month and keep ourselves organized by assigning delegates to go attend different events and having debates. And so we are completely student-run, but we do have an advisor who helps us out with understanding the new developments that have gone on in the county. So for 2 to 3 years, we just continued putting pressure on the school board. We showed up at all of their meetings. We decided to try to increase our traction in the community and get our name out there by attending local green fairs and different environmental events. So that's how I ended up attending the Solar Congress last year. And this really helped us get more in the press. We were featured in a lot of newspapers like the Washington Post, which helped the school board know that we were a legitimate organization and we really cared about this issue. And so some of the progress that we made, in May of 2018, the school board started their Solar for Schools feasibility study, and then in October, they passed their resolution on climate action. In January of 2019, a couple of our speakers went to the Capital Improvement Plan public hearing, and then in the work session that followed, the school board added those 3 schools to their pilot program and decided to expand that to evaluate all 200 schools and government buildings in the county for solar. So I think that the reason that it happened now was, first of all, we were working on it for 3 years, and also solar has become cheaper in the past couple of years, and PPAs have really made it possible for schools to go solar. And surrounding jurisdictions like Arlington County were getting really good prices in late 2018, and so they saw this and they realized that they had to take action, especially with the federal investment tax credit going down at the end of 2019. It created a sense of urgency for them. Also, Fairfax County is the 10th largest school district in the country, and so they saw this as an opportunity to be a leader in in the country for renewable energy. And as well, I think seeing our student voices and the rising concern for the climate crisis, us constantly like showing up in their faces and like them seeing us was a really big motivating factor. And so since they issued their commitment, our movement has been all about accountability, making sure that this program is accelerated and it's on as many schools as possible. We also have the opportunity to expand our advocacy, including a couple of our delegates went to Richmond to campaign for the Solar Freedom Bill, which basically, it involves a lot, but reducing the caps on the electricity that can be produced by PPAs, because already in Virginia, since so many school districts are going solar, we're reaching that cap and it needs to be raised. So I want to end off by talking about what you can do. I don't see that many high school students out in the audience, but you can still do a lot. Definitely, I would say reach out to your local high school environmental clubs who are active. We are student run, we plan all of our own meetings, but having an advisor is really helpful. A lot of times the inner workings of all that happens the information isn't really accessible. And so it really helped us to have an advisor who knew about everything that was going on, and also helped us initially to like start up, write our speeches, get the right tone and how we communicate to the school board. And also, if you can't involve yourself directly in the school, help campaign for the Solar Freedom Bill and also the Virginia Declaration of Solar Rights that Solar United Neighbors has created. So student voices are extremely important. I think that the school board has expressed that seeing our faces and like hearing us constantly speaking up for 3 years was a huge factor for them. And so I really encourage you to try and involve students as much as possible. We want to be involved. Everyone I work with has been extremely proactive, and so yeah, involve students. And if you want to contact Solar on the Schools, please do so. I'll email this on the screen, but also in your flyers. And also, thank you to Solar United Neighbors for inviting me. It was great to be here for this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and listening. What a great panel we've had so far. My name is Tish Tablan. I'm with Generation 180. And Generation 180 is a national nonprofit organization. We're based in Charlottesville, Virginia. So we're really focused on inspiring and equipping people to take action in their homes and in their communities to advance clean energy. I am the program director of our Solar Schools campaign. And so what that looks like is really helping educate, inspire, and provide resources for amazing young people like Aditi to do what she did. I have resources in the back, including an advocacy guide. If you want to help lead a campaign like what these amazing young people did in Fairfax, we literally wrote a toolkit for you to help you walk through that process of how you talk to the school district, the facilities managers, to the school board members, what you need to bring to those meetings. So we're really about trying to give you the resources you need, and that the school stakeholders need to understand what this process looks like and the factors they need to consider in going solar. So I don't think I need to convince anyone here in this room why solar in general, but I think it might be worth pointing out why solar in schools makes such a great match. So we see amazing people like Aditi trying to bring this to their schools. And if you think about it, schools are where young people spend most of their day outside of their home. They're there 7 to 8 hours a day, maybe longer if you do after school activities. So I think young people really want to see their schools representing their values and thinking about their future, not just their educational future, but their future in society. So it really makes a lot of sense why we want to bring clean energy to schools. Schools have that opportunity to model to the community what solar could look like. If you've never found solar in your house, you see it on your school, students talk about it to their parents, maybe you get inspired to bring that to your community. So we really have an opportunity to touch the community. So these are the wise words of my 7-year-old son. And he spoke to the school board at a City of Charlottesville school board meeting, and they were voting on a resolution to commit to more renewable energy, energy efficiency, and water conservation, and they passed it. So we are doing things like that, supporting things like what the DT is doing, and trying to spread that kind of activism in schools around Virginia and around the country. So the main reason, there are two really main reasons why schools want to go solar from the school district perspective. I think there are many reasons, but this is really what when you talk to school board members and facilities managers, they want to be good stewards of your tax dollars. We're all paying into our schools, and they're really aware of how much money they're spending on energy. It's the number 2 cost to schools after staffing. Nationwide, we're spending $8 billion on energy. So solar is now, with the drop in prices, providing a way for schools to trim their energy budget in a way they haven't had before. So what does that look like in Virginia? We're seeing many school districts at this level using a power purchase agreement to save a lot of money. We're talking millions of dollars over 25 years, which is a tremendous amount of money for a school district to save. So I love this case study of Middlesex County. They're a rural school district in the Northern Neck. They have a total of 3 schools. And by going solar, they're going to save $4.74 million over 25 years. So in year 1, they're saving about $50,000. So that's another teacher right there that they're saving, that they're able to afford by going solar. And the director of facilities there, he's an amazing person. He is a self-proclaimed solar skeptic. He will say, I would have done this 10 years ago, but the numbers were so compelling. I am a converted solar champion. And now, since they have this installed this summer, he's given dozens of tours to other school districts who have come to Middlesex to view this site, to talk to them about why they did it, how it's going. And these are school districts from around the country that are coming to talk about it. So the other reason, of course, why solar is a great opportunity is because of the educational opportunities it can provide. So this is a picture of Discovery Elementary in Arlington, and they are certainly the ultimate example of how you can integrate this into your school curriculum. They have an exceptional rooftop solar lab that I haven't seen anywhere else, and they've now done this on a second school out of Fleet Elementary. So they're going to now have 2 net zero, really net positive schools that are producing more solar energy than they consume. Just that one school is saving $100,000 per year in energy costs. So it's not just a great educational opportunity, but they're also saving money. Another great example, Richmond Public Schools is going solar this year. They have 3 installs done. They're working on completing up to 10 schools with solar this year. And this year, they part of their grant that they got through the RVA Solar Fund, which Generation 180 was a part of pulling together, they were able to fund a position in education coordinator to help bring educational curriculum to the schools. And they are now making some kind of solar energy lesson a required part of the 8th grade curriculum for all of the students. So this is another variation how you can bring education to your school. And outside of a PPA, this is one of the only grants or opportunities that schools have to go solar with no upfront costs. And this is a very small grant from Dominion. They've probably installed these small 1.2 kilowatt educational systems on maybe a dozen schools around the state of Virginia. But standard practice now for solar on schools, they usually come with real-time data monitoring. So you can really see what your system is producing in real time, incorporate that into your lessons. This is a photo of the Charlottesville Albemarle Technical Education Center, KTEC. So this is where we do the vocational education, including electrician courses. So now those students taking courses to become an electrician have a PV installation component, or they have some tools they can use to include solar into their curriculum. And by getting this small system installed, it also helped spur our local community college, Piedmont Virginia Community College, to also start a PV installation course. Just having that technology help expand educational opportunities to the schools. Okay, so one of the things we're doing to provide resources to the public is providing information information. So some of that we're compiling, we're working on bringing a Virginia Solar Schools report that we're going to release on November 25th. So it's coming soon. Previewing a couple of slides of data I can share now just to give you a sense of how far we've come in helping schools go solar. So right now we're at about 3% of schools in the state have gone solar. Not very much. I'd love to see that number come up to 100. Right now we're at 3%. You can see where on the map where some of those leaders are currently. What's really exciting is how much it's growing. So even though we're only at 3%, the growth we've seen in the past 5 years is tremendous, largely due to power purchase agreements and the abilities for schools to do this without changing their budget. In fact, even decreasing their budget because of the upfront savings. 5 years ago, we had 321 kilowatts of solar installed on schools statewide. So 320 kilowatts, you might do that in one project. That's about the average size of a solar school installation now. So 5 years ago, we had the equivalent of one project for solar all across the state. So it's just grown tremendously. So how can we keep going and expanding this? We see solar expanding on schools. We do need to look at some of the policies. So what has driven this growth has largely been power purchase agreements being enabled specifically in Dominion territory. So a lot of that growth came from Dominion. If you see Appalachian Power's service territory, there's a measly 22 kilowatts in that service territory. And those are basically a handful of educational systems on schools because they do not allow power purchase agreements for public schools. And that service, and if you're an Appalachian Power, you really need to advocate for power purchase agreements to be available to public schools, to other nonprofits. Right now, it's only available if you're a nonprofit institution of higher education. That's who can use a PPA. And right now, they have 0 participants because that's, I think, essentially only Liberty University is eligible. So that policy clearly needs to be changed. We had a few people alluding to Dominion's policy. So they have a 50 megawatt cap for power purchase agreements. Today, if you look at the SEC website, 40 megawatts of that 50 is already used up. Fairfax County has already issued their RFP. It's including about 234 buildings. So that would easily exhaust way more than the 10 megawatts left in Dominion. So there is something we're looking at that's immediate, that once Fairfax County kind of finishes their process, and that cap would be exhausted. So what can we do? I'm going to make a plug for Solar Neighbors policy. They call it the Virginia Declaration of Solar Rights. You can go on the website to sign it, support it. That's the sheet that's in your packet that Solar Neighbors referred to earlier. So I really feel like these policies do a great job of summarizing what are the key gaps and barriers we need to remove to really help expand solar for schools, nonprofits, and government institutions. Like I said, we have a lot of resources. These are resources if you want to help advocate for your school to go solar. We have a couple left. I saw them going off this, disappearing off the table back there, but you can go to our website, check these out. We have more resources that are specific for like when you go and talk to those decision makers, school board members, facility managers, what's the kind of information you might want to bring to them. And we have lots more on our website, educational, financial, and technical resources. There's my email address if you want to ask any questions or have any requests for resources we can help provide.
Thank you very much to all the presenters. That was awesome. I realized I did not introduce myself. My name is Ruth Hamilton. I'm actually a NASA engineer in my day job, so I know all the details. But in my spare time, I do a lot in solar. So I'm just going to skim through a few other financing methods that are available that weren't covered specifically by these presenters. These are also in the flyers that are up here, just so you're aware of all of them, and then we'll take questions. So I'm going to go through all the ones in that list. So one is called CPACE, which is available in Virginia. It's Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing. It's a way for your locality to get financing to allow any entity that's commercial or nonprofit or municipal to have funding to go solar with no upfront cost. It's enacted in Virginia, but your locality has to write an ordinance to use it, and very few of them have. Scott Dickey, who's right here for CPACE, Abby Johnson might be here as well. They're experts in CPACE, and it's a really great tool to bring solar into your locality without having to go find the investors. I'm going to give you a little bit in the weeds here. People have talked about power purchase agreements and how they work. I want to show the investor side, why it's worthwhile to do this. If you look at that whole pie as the price of your solar system, as an investor, if I own those panels that are going up on a school or a church, in the first year, I get back the green part with my 30% investment tax credit, and I get back the purple part by taking depreciation. That's another roughly 30%. So on the school that we did, the investors got 60% of their money back 4 months after the install was done. Chad was a miracle man and finished the install basically December 30th, which let us take all of that in 2018 taxes. And so we filed in late March and got 60% of the investment back 3 to 4 months after doing it. And then that blue slice is how much annual income you're getting from the panels. If you have extremely altruistic members of your church or parents at a school, it can basically pay off with basically net zero in about 7 years. But if your investor wants a little more profit, they can just hold those panels for say 10 years and get a decent profit. The kicker is that the people that are investing need to have passive income to take those credits. So that's just some of the weeds for that. I have template documents for helping people do this, and they're at that website that's listed. So this is the first example of doing this. This was our kids' school, Norfolk Academy. We put $1 million of solar up. It was 2,000 panels, and our parents will be paid back in 7 years. And we basically covered the entire lower school and middle school. And like Father John was saying, when I was up on that roof watching it go on, like Chad would have to kick me out of there because I was just like a kid on Christmas running around taking pictures of panels and squealing. I mean, it was just very exciting to watch. After that, I actually got 5 weeks off because government shut down. So I decided that was so fun, I wanted to do something more. And I started this fund. I don't know how many of you have heard Qualified Opportunity Zone funds, but this is a federal program. Like, there's going to be another panel that talks about equity, but this is a way to get solar in low-income neighborhoods that don't have any access to renewable energy. So it gives an additional financial benefit for investors who have capital gains to put solar in those neighborhoods. And Chad was also the installer for this, and he was good enough to include in our agreement for the fund that he would hire residents of the opportunity zones to be trained and work as solar installers on these jobs. And it has meant we've had the first diversity in solar installer employees that we've ever had in Hampton Roads in the last 30 years. So I was really proud of that, and this is some pictures of some of those. I particularly like Chad's hat down here, converter died. And that's, I would love to see more people start qualified opportunity zones for other, we've basically expended all the money in my fund, but anybody could do this that has capital gains, has passive income, is passionate about solar and wanting to put it in low-income neighborhoods. Chad, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna run through these, just because I think we should do speed. So there's a lot of installers, and we've already heard a lot of this mentioned, that same back end I showed you on how it works for the investors, commercial and solar installers can use all those same tax breaks. So there's a lot of commercial installers that are willing to do the same thing. These are people that are doing it for a profit, and they have to feed their kids, so they're probably not going to be like a parent and do it for absolutely zero profit. But a lot of that gives you a way to put up solar with no upfront cost. Also, Virginia Community Capital does a lot of solar loans, another way to do it with no upfront cost. And there's this group called Revolve that does it as a nonprofit. They look really interesting. I haven't seen anybody yet that's used them. And this is just some of everybody's been talking about solar on schools, but these are all the schools that have issued RFPs and put in solar at no upfront cost. And as Tish said, I would love to see this be 100% in the next 4 years. This just shows the same pie chart. If a commercial business puts it up, they can get that same kind of payout time, take the investment tax credit and take depreciation. You can also do the same kind of thing with loans. If a school or a church or a installer or a commercial business wants to put up solar, you can just loan them the money and then they take all those tax credits. This is a picture of an install that was done with one of those loans through Virginia Community Capital. Another example is solar crowdfunding. Secure Futures is doing this right now, but anybody could do something similar and do some solar crowdfunding where you get a bunch of funds together to do it. Obviously, as everyone else has said, this all depends on the PPA cap being removed in Virginia because, you know, once Fairfax comes in, it's awesome that you did it, but it kills the cap, so nobody else can do this if we don't expand the cap. These are a few notes. I'm sure you'll hear these other ones, but you don't want to put it on a real old roof because then you got to pull out the solar when you need to repair it. You need a flat roof or something south-facing slant, and it really can't be a slate roof. And unfortunately, a lot of churches have slate roofs, but it's just not cost-effective to do it on slate. I think all the rest of these we've talked about. Obviously, the tax credit is going to go down at the end of 2019, but if you start your project within 2019, you can still get the 30%. And the cap. So these are just a couple of barriers that you may come up against with your institution. Some of them are worried about the maintenance, insurance, what's going to happen when the panels, they have to dispose of them, the risk to students or congregation, the panel flies off the roof, hits a kid in the head, you know, they're worried about liability, and they're worried about damage to the roof. You have to assuage all of those fears before they're going to be willing to move forward. And an investor might be worried about risk. As Chad said, a lot of investors are worried that the place they're going to put the solar up is going to go bankrupt and not be able to pay. And they might be worried about not making as much profit margin as say, a real estate deal. I don't think anybody needs me to go through just the very many advantages to solar. But one of the things that people don't think about, it does extend your roof lifetime because you're protecting the roof from UV, and it usually will decrease your air conditioning bill, since here in Virginia, the majority of the time we're spending on air conditioning, then the solar panels are sucking up that heat instead of letting it come in. So that's my little run through. So I'd like to take questions from the audience. If, yeah.
So you went to first about is that available to all nonprofits
I'm going to take my alternate question for here.
Everybody, I'm Scott Dickey with Sustainable Real Estate Solutions. We're a CPACE program administrator. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's commercial property assessment and energy financing. It does focus the commercial sector. It does also include all nonprofits, church buildings, and schools, but public schools typically don't use it. They usually have access to cheaper financing through public dollars, government. But private institutions may evaluate CPACE for fit and compare it to their various other financing. So that's the quick and dirty version. I'll hand the mic back. But if you guys want to know more about the business case for solar, I'm going to plug for the next work session. We'll be talking about CPACE.
Other questions? Yeah.
Just curious, when churches and schools buy electricity, do they pay full retail price?
In general, yes. It depends on their contract.
And so it's interesting, Dominion does have a rate schedule for nonprofits, a 5C rate schedule, which doesn't have demand charges, so that would be for smaller loads. Otherwise, Dominion puts them into a GS2 account typically, or GS3, which is the same as any business would pay. So, but it pencils out at the end of the day, it's the same per kilowatt hour as other buildings.
I have a question to Father Don and Chad. What were the biggest internal hoops you guys had to jump through to get solar on the church? We did 2 church projects this year for the first time, and we were lucky that both had their own financing and a very simple process of decision making. But all other institutions we talked the years before, we felt it was more internal, but not where the money comes from.
we got lucky with Catholic Energies, did a lot of the heavy lifting. They were massaging the process with the diocese. Internally, in terms of the parish, no obstacles. In fact, we were moving faster. And then when we went through the hoops with the diocese, again, that's the accountability of a larger group. So they were all happy. The lawyers saw it, the economists, in terms of the finance people in the diocese liked it. We slowed up with the investor side because we had a couple of investors. Then they looked at us, we're too small. You know, Wall Street money is Wall Street money. I'll give you 10 million so I can make 16 million 3 days later. I mean, it's a lot of grief. So we had to find an investor, the third one, who did invest in small projects. He's got a whole series of small projects. That was the only slow point. But we did not have the obstacles as you would think, because we also did the process up front pretty cleanly too.
With the Catholic Church compared to other churches that we tried to work with, there were a lot of hoops to jump through, but it kept moving forward at a nice clip. I was impressed. I was a little nervous. I actually, for the first time, went in front of the diocese, and they had our building architectural review committee. We all sat on one side of the table with all the experts on the other, and they peppered us with questions for several hours. So, well, we made it with flying colors.
Just gonna say the 5G rate for churches, is that something that's cheaper than the 2G or the 2 rate?
So the 5C is a non-demand bill, so they're not gonna have demand charges on it. And I think it's typically 10, 11, 12 cents per kilowatt hour. A demand rate can be cheaper if you don't have high demand, or it can be more if you have high demand. It's very site specific.
Maybe one more question? Yeah.
How do you prove that you started the project in terms of the IRS?
I'm not a CPA, and I'm not allowed to advise on such things. That's what my CPA told me to always answer the question. It's a gray area. What do you think?
The IRS ruled that you have to have what they call a substantial start, and that means 5%. So if you get a quote from an installer for $1 million install, and you pay them a down payment of $50,000, you have proved that you've made a substantial start. There's another proof method that has to do with how much construction you've done, but spending 5% of the total is the easiest way. And I'm not a CPA either, so my lawyer doesn't allow me to get to tax advice, but I've read the IRS ruling on that, and that's what they say is substantial means 5%. I think the other panels are done, so we need to quit, but thank you for your time, and
I might go pick one up.
thank you to the panel, and feel free to grab a flyer up here, and also talk to these guys offline in the networking time.
Yeah. Yeah, it pushes.
Housing prices right now, rates are redeveloping, are cheap. I went on myself just to see how much. And you know, like a lot of those houses, like those old school, like single homes back in the day, they actually have a lot of space.
Yeah.
So it's like running through shape.
Yeah.
This house is like 30,000, 40,000,
As long as you don't go in.
60,000.
As long as you don't go into just about this.
Exactly. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
They all gonna go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like right now, it's like, you know, if somebody who's like, you know, into like the real estate, they're buying up a bunch of property at one time.
And they
like,
are.
That would be like a prime area.
Well, we kind of face that in our community, and those investors are.
That's what they gotta do. You already know.
They
Ain't gonna be none of us.
Somebody dies and the investors are